All right, so thank you for tuning in to another episode of It's More Than Just Physical. I have a client and a friend, Jamie, with me. If you'd like to introduce yourself, tell the people your name and what you do for a living.
Sure. I'm Jamie Hogue, and I am a 13-year educator and current school counselor, and soon to be doctoral graduate in educational psychology and administration and leadership.
Okay, so you're someone who's in the medical health field, right?
Mental health.
Yeah. Mental health. That's what I meant. Mental health. So the web series that I'm doing is called It's More Than Just Physical, and I want to bridge the gap between physical health and mental health. And I want people to realize that both can coincide with each other. They both do coincide with each other after a workout. So we just finished the workout. How do you feel after this workout?
I feel refreshed. I feel liberated, and I feel a bit beat up.
A bit beat up.
I feel a bit beat up right now.
How do you feel mentally?
Mentally, I feel great. I just allowed myself to tackle some things that I would think were challenging, but just sticking in there, staying with it, it's been good for me. So it feels good.
For someone that's in the mental health field, are you able to gauge how you feel before a workout versus how you feel after a workout? Because I'm starting to notice, as I sit down after a workout, I'm I feel great. I feel, as you said, refreshed. I feel like I accomplished something. I feel like I did something productive. I can go home and sleep all day. I would still wake up feeling like, yeah, I just did something great today.
Right.
How did, are you able to say, okay, after I worked out, I did something, I accomplished something? Do you notice that difference in your mental health?
I actually do. Prior to working out, it's almost like a war that's going on in the head.
Yeah.
You're thinking about how you're going to plan, how you're going to execute, if I'm able to keep up with the exercises, if I'm going to give it all, am I going to have the best form? So you're kind of going through these things to make sure
exactly.
you're going to lessen the chances of injury, and that you get the best out of the workout. So definitely, I think prior to this preparation that goes on in the head. It's like a mental war.
Yeah.
But afterwards, it's kind of like you can lay down your sword and your shield.
That was a great answer.
Yeah.
That was a great answer. So during this this pandemic, how are you handling that? How are you handling you work at a school, right?
I do.
So how do you handle not being at the school, not being able to see the students, not being able to see even coworkers, how do you feel mentally with your routine being kind of broken?
It's definitely a major difference. I've been in the education field for 13 years, so I'm used to being in close contact with my colleagues and students, and they feel like family. I've been in contact with them through a lot of social outlets such as Zoom, Google Meet, for my students and for my coworkers, and that keeps us connected emotionally. But I do miss seeing them, so it's been a little difficult to make this adjustment. And I know as an adult, 39-year-old man, it's been difficult for me to be separated from my coworkers, because you get the camaraderie working with them and also the students. So I know it's difficult for the kids as well. So we try to make sure that we keep it in close contact with our students and making sure that they have what they need emotionally, and still keeping up with social emotional character learning and making sure that they have the things that they need. So there's still some kind of communication. It's just we're not in close proximity to one another anymore.
How do you deal with? So I say that with our routine, right? With you going to work, let's say you work 9 to 3 or 4. During that time, you're, for lack of a better term, you're distracted from your own mental health and your own thoughts. Now I say that people have to live with themselves. You're at home and you have to live with whatever battles you're facing mentally. How does that impact you, and how do you battle, and how do you conquer those mental health obstacles?
I think one is to make sure you're taking breaks from social media.
That's major.
It's so much an influx of information. The constant killing of black people, the information that black people have the highest number of cases of COVID-19. You have to take a break from it, because when you don't, I find for myself, and I'm just speaking about myself, you get an influx of negative thoughts that come to you. And when you're in your own space, the way in which I try to defeat those negative thoughts, sometimes I'm thinking is this gonna ever end? Am I ever gonna see outside? Am I gonna be able to be around my family? Am I gonna be around my friends? Will I go back to work? And I just kind of replace those thoughts with making sure I have mantras around, or I have affirmations in my house, and I see those when I wake up. And this was something that I got from a good friend of mine, Cassandra McDonald, and also my therapist, Michael Wiley. And so these are exercises that I do on a regular to make sure that I am maintaining my mental health, taking a break from news outlets, checking it enough to make sure that I'm informed, but not so much where I feel like I'm overwhelmed by the information. Because when I feel like I do that, it impacts the way I sleep, it impacts my eating, it impacts my thought process, and everything starts with a thought. So if I get these overwhelming thoughts in my head, and it makes me not want to eat well.
Right.
It makes me want to indulge in unhealthy habits such as unhealthy eating, lack of sleep, and things of that nature. So I try to make sure that I am always making room for peace in my own brain.
Okay, so you mentioned therapy.
Yeah.
What does therapy mean to you? What does it do to you or do for you? How does it impact your life? Because a lot of black men, we shy away from that. We feel like that is, we feel, and I'm one to say, I'll admit it myself, with me being a young black man, I feel invincible, right? There's that bit of invincibility that I feel like a lot of men, all men, feel, but then there's kind of like that brokenness when you have to admit that there's something wrong and I have to go see a therapist. You feel broken. And I know that that's not, like, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to seek therapy. It's okay to seek help. So how did you come to that understanding of, I need more help, and how does that impact you?
Well, my research is black men and the therapeutic counseling services. Black men and the barriers that they have in front of them to seek therapeutic counseling services.
Right.
And there's so many barriers: historical barriers, financial barriers, and social-emotional barriers that keep black men from seeking therapy. Now, that's my research. When I wrote that research, I wasn't going to see a therapist, so I felt like a hypocrite.
So what are some of those barriers?
Historically, in the black community, we tend to not go outside of our community for what we call emotional issues. And a lot of times there's so much stigma surrounding mental health practices in the black community that a lot of times we just kind of write them off and say, oh, so-and-so, they're just crazy. We give it different names when it's actually mental health. A lot of us are suffering right now from depression, and we suffer from anxiety, and there's a rising number of black men who suffer from these things, but we write those off.
Yeah.
And we see the rising numbers of our brothers incarcerated. We see high numbers of recidivism going back into the penal systems and things of that nature. So for me, I got to a point where it was like, listen, I've been suffering from childhood traumas for a very long time, and it started to impact how I live my life. It started to impact my work. It started to just impact me in general. So I made a decision a long time ago that I was going to seek some support to kind of put into perspective the things that have happened to me in this 39 years of life, and just being black and male in America.
Right.
Transitioning from adolescence into at 20 years old, becoming a man, going off to college, and having these different experiences that nobody prepared me for.
Right.
And so a lot of times I think that when we come out of these situations and we feel like we're still in a physical body, we have some kind of way escaped the mental illness, or we escaped it, and that's not necessarily true. I grew up in Robert Taylor housing projects, and people always thought, oh, well, you went to college, you got a couple of degrees, you made it.
You made it.
And I would say all the time, like, no, but I'm very broken.
Right.
Nobody leaves those spaces unscathed. Nobody leaves those experiences without taking on some type of trauma. And that's just what it is. And I just made a decision that I was going to live my life trauma-free, and that I know for me the healing process will be a lifelong thing, and that's not something that carries shame for me at all.
That's dope. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
No better answer than that. I know the answer, but do you feel like, and how has seeking a counselor or therapist, how has that helped you in terms of gathering and processing your own thoughts?
Therapy introduced me to myself.
I love that. Say that one more time.
Therapy introduced me to myself. Prior to me going to therapy, I was just kind of walking through life blindly, just one day to the next, and kind of living for other people. And I had this real toxic level of codependency on people as well. But what therapy did for me was actually held a mirror up to my face, so that I can actually see the baggage and the brokenness that I was carrying around for all that time.
Yeah.
And so when those layers start to come off, you actually start to see who you truly are. So I'll tell people all the time, therapy was the mirror that showed me, reflected who I was. It introduced me to who Jamie is. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper. Do you like who that person is now compared to who that person was before therapy? Of course. What are the differences, if you want to tap into that? What are the differences that you've seen in the growth that you've experienced in that? Well, I definitely like the man that I'm becoming every day. I think my ultimate goal every day is to be a better man on today than I was yesterday. And that takes work. It takes practice. It takes a lot of thought process too. And it's, and everything starts with the thought. I can't be a better man on today with the same thought process I had yesterday. So I'm always evolving as a man. I'm always trying to make conscious decisions so that I can be better. Small things to whether or not I have a bottled water with my meal or a Coke. Whether or not I have negative self-speak or if I'm going to pour positivity into myself and have good thoughts about myself. And so I think that in this process, I'm learning to love the person I'm becoming. What I do know is that it's not so much of a I'm ready to go from A to the finishing line.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying the process.
Exactly.
Of getting to be who I want to be.
And that's a life quote. Enjoy the process.
Yes, the process.
The process.
I'm not gonna be who Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remove 39 years of baggage, bad habits, and bad thought processes. And typically, over years, we in a cyclical cycle of how we think about things. And if you're trying to replace those negative thoughts and trying to inject those positive things in there, sometimes it kicks it out. You want to kick it out because you've been on a cyclical cycle of thinking a certain kind of way about yourself, about your external being, how you feel about yourself internally. And so just trying to inject those positive things in there sometimes is a uphill battle.
So to my generation, right? Let's say you're speaking to my entire generation. You're speaking to the millennials or anyone under the age of 24, 25.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you give to someone that is still on the fence about counseling? And what do you give, what advice do you give to someone that says, I don't know if I should go seek a therapist? And what advice do you give to someone that needs help just starting off? So let's say I don't trust therapy, right? Now I do, but let's say hypothetically I don't trust therapy. What are the necessary steps that I take to get that ball rolling to seek therapy?
All right, well, I first would say to the person that is on the fence about whether or not they want to seek a therapist is just to offer them information. It's all about timing. Some people have to hit a certain level before they say enough is enough. And so I think to be compassionate to people, we can always just offer them information.
Mm-hmm.
And they take initiative when they feel like they have to be. I was at a point where for me it was either life or death. And I said to myself, either I am going to die a spiritual death. If I don't get some support, I'm just going to die inside myself, or I'm going to make some changes. And so I think sometimes we have to get to a point where it's a matter of your own life and death. And I think as friends and family members, we only can support them by making sure we present them with the information. For anybody who has made the decision that they want to see a therapist, I think they need to be very clear about what kind of therapist they want to have. For me, it was very significant and important that I had somebody that was black. I wanted somebody who could kind of understand what it was to be black and a male in America and how it is to navigate every day. And I didn't think I could get that from somebody other than a black man or a black woman, but specifically a black man. And I've had a therapist for a year and a half now, and that's completely changed my life. And I think at that point you can do a lot of research. You can go through the American Psychological Services. APA, not APA, I'm sorry, but you can go, if you Google it, you can Google a couple of facilities in Chicago. I do know Sankofa Psychological Services is one, Resilience is another, and you can just do a Google search. If you're looking for somebody and you want someone that's going to be culturally competent about your issues, you can always start with a Google search and go from there. It's that simple.
That's dope.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I want to ask you is
make sure that they're in your network too of your insurance. That's
say important. That one more time.
Make sure that they are in the network of your insurance,
yes,
so that lessens the cost.
Hey, it does get a little pricey, so make sure it is within your insurance.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I want to ask is, and you did touch on it a bit, was childhood traumas. Do you notice your childhood traumas, what you've experienced, and how they shaped you to be the person that you are? And when I say childhood traumas, for example, I've touched on this a few times with me growing up, not having a relationship with my father. I've noticed that I lack in communication.
Mm-hmm.
I lack when I deal with an issue. I deal with it internally, and I would rather isolate myself. Mm-hmm. So I would ghost you real quick, and that's not just romantic relationships, but that'd be relationships with guys I consider my brothers and my friends. Like, I just need to kind of step away for a week or two to kind of gather my own thoughts, but that's not the best way.
Yeah.
Do you notice the bad habits that you picked up due to or the bad qualities that you may still kind of have inside of you due to the childhood traumas?
Yeah. I think that one of the things that I constantly, consistently battle with a lot of time is discipline. It takes a lot of discipline to eat well, to exercise, to study. And in some areas, I'm quite disciplined. In some other areas, I don't have it because I never had that direction. I never had a man to show me what it is to be disciplined,
Right.
to get up in the morning, to exercise, to eat well, how important it is to take care of yourself, your physical, mind, body, and spirit.
Right.
And then also for me, I did the same thing too. I used to kind of retreat and kind of mentally exit myself from people. I could be in the same space physically, but I could be gone another place.
Yeah.
Also, too, part of what I struggled with for years was, like I said, I had developed a very toxic codependency on people because people validated who I was, and I needed that. I didn't have any. I struggled with the value in who I was,
Yeah.
and how to present myself. And it's hard to do that when you're black and a male in America, and definitely when you don't have a model, you have nobody to show you what it is to be a man and how to stand up by yourself. You find yourself taking on different traits that are not going to be mentally healthy for you in the long run. And as you get older, those things start to play out, and when you start to see your relationships fail, whether it's with family or intimate relationships, we find those things starting to fail because of your lack thereof and your inability to process some of those things. Then you find that a lot of your relationships that could be great start to time turn sour because of your inability to communicate or to be expressive. And I tell a lot of people all the time, like, I had used my friends for a long time as therapy. Your friends are not your therapist, and it's unfair for you to burden them with a lot of the things that you're going through. Get a therapist. And sometimes we got to take away the taboo. We got to take away this whole notion that therapy is for crazy people.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And then so once I realized that I was pushing my friends away because I was constantly telling my story over and over again, I was just trying to seek some support and solidarity. And then one of my friends said, you need to get a therapist.
Yeah.
And I heard it, and I did that, and it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life. It's been single-handedly one of the best decisions I've ever made for me.
That's dope. So, if we learned anything in this interview, we spoke a lot about therapy. We spoke a lot about mental health and the challenges that black men face, that men face. And Jamie, my dog, he broke it down to inspire, and he broke it down so that we can get an understanding of mental health, not just mental health, but why we should seek therapy. So I want to say thank you.
Thank
For
you.
this episode.
Thanks for having me.
I want to leave the people with one last question. What does mental health mean to you? What is just mental health? What do you think about when I say mental health? What does it mean to you?
Mental health is having the grace to forgive yourself for not being a person that you want to be, or that your mind, and because of your experiences, won't let you be. Having the grace to forgive yourself, and also the strength to make changes to be who you want to be. That's what mental health is for me. Identifying if you think there's issues that are stopping you from being your best person, and making those changes so that you can be.
So he left us with a gem. Again, I want to say thank you for doing this episode with me. Thank you for doing this interview. I'm sure we're going to help and impact a lot of people that watch this. Thank you for joining another episode of It's More Than Physical. I'll see you guys soon. Thank you.